The afternoon sun hung low over the wide frontier as Evelyn Pierce rode in the back of a rattling stagecoach, her gloved hands resting on the small suitcase she had packed for her new life. She had never imagined she would become a mail-order bride, but life rarely unfolded the way she once dreamed. Her father's passing, her mother's illness, her dwindling savings. Each hardship pushed her toward the unknown future waiting for her in the West. She carried only a letter of instructions, an address written in firm, confident handwriting, and a hope that her husband-to-be might be a decent man. The stagecoach driver, a weathered fellow with a gravelly voice, called back that they were approaching the ranch. Evelyn leaned toward the window, expecting to see a grand home belonging to Henry Dalton, the wealthy widower she had agreed to marry. Instead, she saw a small, worn ranch tucked between rolling fields and broken fences, a place that seemed tired from years of hard living. A single chimney puffed a thin line of smoke into the sky, and a child's clothes hung on a line, fluttering in the wind. She stepped down from the coach, unsure but too nervous to question the driver. Before she could ask if this was indeed Dalton's property, the coach jolted forward again, leaving her in a cloud of dust. Evelyn stood alone, her heart thumping against her ribs. She checked the letter again, tracing the address with her thumb. Something felt wrong, but she had nowhere else to go and no way to chase the departing coach. A door creaked open at the front of the house. A little girl no older than 7 peeked out, her hair in tangled braids, her dress patched more than once. She stared at Evelyn with wide, curious eyes. Evelyn offered a gentle smile, though she felt far from calm. The child took a small step forward, then another, as though drawn towards something she did not yet understand. "Hello there," Evelyn said softly, careful not to frighten her. "Is your father home?" The child didn't answer at first. She studied Evelyn with an expression far older than her years, a guarded look that only hardship could carve into a young face. Then she whispered, barely loud enough for Evelyn to hear, "God finally sent you to us." The words froze Evelyn in place. The child's small voice held pleading hope mixed with fear and something else, a belief that Evelyn did not yet understand. Before she could ask what the girl meant, the front door opened wider and a tall, rugged man stepped onto the porch. His beard was unshaven, his clothes work-worn, and his eyes carried the weight of loss. He looked at Evelyn as though unsure whether she was real. "Ma'am," he said cautiously, "can I help you?" Evelyn swallowed hard and forced a polite smile, even as dread curled in her stomach. "I believe," she said, "I was sent here to marry Henry Dalton." The man stared at her in stunned silence. "This," he finally said, "is not the Dalton Ranch." And in that moment Evelyn understood. She had been delivered to the wrong man. Morning sunlight stretched across the open fields as Clara rode in the back of the supply wagon, unaware that she was being carried toward the wrong ranch. The driver, humming softly, believed he was delivering a mail-order bride to the McAllister Ranch, and Clara believed she was finally arriving at the place where she was promised. But 10 long miles away, another ranch, another family, and another man waited unknowingly for a stranger who would change everything. The wagon rolled through tall grass, the wheels creaking as birds scattered across the sky. Clara held her small suitcase tightly, unsure of what waited ahead. She had spent 2 weeks traveling across states with nothing but the hope that her future would be kinder than her past. Her heart was steady but nervous, her thoughts quiet as she watched the endless fields drift by. The ranch grew closer, a long wooden fence coming into view, a chimney smoking gently, and a small porch lined with dusty boots and children toys. Inside the ranch house, Daniel Turner sat at the table repairing a saddle strap, his brow furrowed in concentration. His daughter Lily played with a rag doll, humming softly while glancing toward the window as if expecting something or someone. Daniel had no idea a wagon was approaching the ranch. He had not ordered a bride, had not written any letters, and had not even considered remarrying after his wife passed 2 years before. Life had been heavy but steady. He provided for Lily, worked the ranch, and carried his grief quietly. The wagon came to a stop in front of the porch. Lily looked up, her eyes wide with curiosity. Daniel stood slowly, setting the saddle piece aside, and walked toward the door, wiping his hands on a cloth. The driver climbed down, tipped his hat, and gestured toward the back of the wagon, saying something cheerful and confident. Clara stepped down, unsure, feet touching unfamiliar ground, her eyes meeting the stranger staring back at her. She expected recognition, warm welcome, some sign that he was the man she had ridden to. But Daniel Turner did not know her. He froze, confusion flickering across his face. Clara felt her heart sink, her breath unsteady. Something felt wrong, terribly wrong. Lily peeked from behind her father, studying the woman with big, curious eyes. Daniel approached slowly and spoke gently, trying to understand who she was, what had happened, and why a bride had been delivered to a ranch where no bride was expected. Clara tried to explain, but even her own voice trembled because nothing made sense. Before Daniel could gather the right words, Lily stepped forward, small hand tugging at Clara's skirt. She looked up with innocent wonder and whispered with soft certainty words that made Clara's heartbeat stutter. God finally sent you to us. The wind quieted. The wagon driver frowned. The confusion between Clara and Daniel hung heavy, but Lily's words filled the air with something unexplainable. Clara stood frozen. Daniel swallowed hard. Lily held Clara's hand as if she already belonged, and in that moment no one knew how deeply those words would shape their lives, or how fate had woven a mistake into a miracle. The morning light crept softly across the ranch as Evelyn woke in the small tidy room Naomi had shown her the night before. She had slept lightly, her mind unsettled by the strange turn her life had taken. She had been sent to marry a man she had never met and ended up in a ranch that was not even the right one yet. Despite her confusion, there was a sense of peace here, a quietness she had not felt in years. She stepped outside and saw Naomi sitting on the porch, her small hands folded in her lap, staring at the horizon as if waiting for something. Evelyn approached slowly, unsure if she would startle the girl, but Naomi turned immediately, her bright eyes lighting up as though she had been hoping Evelyn would appear. Evelyn sat beside her, unsure what to say. Naomi reached into her dress pocket and pulled out a worn little notebook and a stub of a pencil. She wrote with careful, slow strokes. Then she held the notebook out. Evelyn read the words with surprise. "I knew you would come." Evelyn looked at her, brows lifting in confusion. She gently asked why Naomi thought that. Naomi wrote again, her small hand trembling slightly. "Mama said someone kind would come someday and God would bring her when we needed her most." Evelyn felt her breath hitch. Naomi continued writing. "Papa tries to be strong, but he is sad. We pray every night for someone to help us feel less alone." Evelyn felt her chest tighten. She had not expected this child to see her as an answer to a prayer. Naomi touched Evelyn's hand with soft, trembling fingers as if afraid Evelyn might disappear. Naomi wrote again. "When I saw you, I felt it inside like a warm light. You looked lost, but also like you belonged." Evelyn struggled to understand, why would this family need her? She had nothing, little money, no great skills, no certainty about her future. Naomi lifted her notebook again. "Papa thinks he must carry everything alone, but he cannot. I hoped God would send someone, and I think he sent you." The sincerity of those words cut through every wall Evelyn had built over the years. She felt an unexpected tenderness toward the little girl, a protective feeling she could not explain. A door creaked and Ethan stepped out onto the porch. His gaze softened when he saw the two of them together. Naomi ran to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He rested a hand gently on her hair, then looked at Evelyn, not cold, not guarded, simply watchful. He asked quietly if Naomi was troubling her. Evelyn shook her head. Naomi scribbled something quickly and handed the notebook to him. He read it and his expression faltered for the first time. He looked at Evelyn long and searching, as if trying to decide what to do with the truth that his daughter believed Evelyn had been sent by God himself. Evelyn held the gaze steady, something unspoken forming between them, something fragile and uncertain but real. And in that moment, the wrong bride sent to the wrong ranch felt for the first time that maybe she was exactly where she was meant to be. Evelyn stood in the center of the small ranch yard, the dusty wind drifting around her skirts while the distant mountains glowed gold under the afternoon sun. She felt the weight of a truth she had been carrying since the moment she stepped onto this land, a truth she had not yet shared with the quiet rancher or the little girl who clung to hope like a lifeline. Evelyn drew a slow breath as she watched Clara chase a speckled chicken, her laughter floating across the open space like a fragile spark of joy. Luke stepped out of the barn, wiping his hands on a worn cloth, his steady gaze falling on Evelyn with the kind of patience that made her chest tighten. He had shown her nothing but kindness even when she had arrived confused and trembling, believing she had been delivered to a future she had never chosen. Yet somehow this place had begun to feel less like a mistake and more like a pause, a moment of unexpected peace. Evelyn walked toward the fence, resting her hands on the rough wood. She looked over the open fields, the grazing cattle, the quiet rhythm of the ranch that Luke managed alone with silent strength. Luke approached, stopping a few steps away, sensing the heaviness of her thoughts. He waited without pressure, allowing her the space to speak when she was ready. Evelyn exhaled and her voice wavered as she told him the truth. She had been promised through an arrangement she did not make and had been sent to the wrong ranch due to a mix-up between two families. She was meant to be delivered to a man she had never met, a wealthy landowner far from here. Luke listened without interruption, his expression unreadable but his eyes soft. Clara drifted close, listening as well, her small hand reaching to hold Evelyn's skirt. When Evelyn finished, the yard fell silent except for the distant lowing of cattle. She braced herself, certain Luke would tell her she needed to leave immediately, that he would send word to the man waiting for her, but instead Luke stepped forward, his voice calm and steady. He said she owed him no explanation. He said she was safe here until she decided what she wanted. The words struck Evelyn so deeply she nearly lost her breath. Clara pressed her cheek gently against Evelyn's arm, whispering that God had sent her. Evelyn tried not to crumble under the tenderness of it, the pure belief shining in the child's eyes. She had never been wanted, not truly, not gently, and certainly not with grace. Yet here, in this dusty yard with a quiet man and a hopeful girl, she felt something she had not felt in years. As the sun dipped lower, the three of them stood together in the softening light, a fragile stillness settling over them. Evelyn knew this peace could not last, but for this moment she allowed herself to breathe, allowed herself to feel, allowed herself to hope. A heavy quiet settled over the ranch as evening approached, the soft glow of lanterns flickering through the windows and casting long shadows across the dusty yard. The wrong bride, as some whispered, now stood at the edge of the porch, her hands resting lightly on the wooden rail as she watched the sun dip behind the hills. Amelia had lived through many uncertain nights, but this one carried a weight she could not yet understand. For the little girl, Lily sat beside her, small fingers curled around the worn fabric of Amelia's skirt as if afraid she might disappear. Inside the house, Daniel prepared supper, moving with a calm steadiness, though his mind churned with questions. He had not expected a mail-order bride at all, much less one sent to the wrong ranch, and yet here she was, gentle, quiet, and carrying storms behind her eyes. He kept glancing toward the doorway, hoping she would step inside soon, as if afraid she might slip away into the dark and leave the ranch emptier than before. Amelia looked down at Lily and brushed a strand of hair from the girl's forehead. The child leaned closer, her small voice barely reaching the air as she told Amelia about the mother she barely remembered, how she used to hum at night, how she used to tuck Lily in with stories. Amelia listened, her heart tightening at every word, feeling a bond growing between them, one she had never expected. When she boarded the stagecoach meant for another man in another town, Lily whispered that she hoped Amelia would stay even if she was not the lady they were supposed to meet, because maybe, just maybe, she was the answer they had prayed for. When Daniel stepped onto the porch, he paused, watching them, framed by the fading light. Amelia with her quiet sadness and Lily with her hopeful innocence. They looked like they belonged together, and something inside him softened. He cleared his throat gently and told them supper was ready. Lily jumped up, pulling Amelia by the hand as if afraid she would refuse. Daniel smiled faintly at the sight, then walked behind them, his boots echoing on the porch boards. Inside, the warm smell of stew lingered in the air. Daniel served food silently, but his eyes kept drifting toward Amelia, studying the way she held her spoon, the way she glanced at Lily before taking a bite, as if wanting the child to feel safe first. Amelia thanked him with a soft nod that carried more meaning than any long speech. Daniel felt something shift inside him, something long buried stirring awake. After supper, Lily curled up in her small bed, still holding Amelia's hand, refusing to let go. Amelia hummed softly a tune she barely remembered from her own childhood. Daniel stood at the doorway, watching the scene, his heart tightening at the gentle bond forming in front of him. For years, he had kept grief locked inside, refusing to let anything or anyone reopen those wounds, but tonight he felt the walls inside him begin to soften. When Amelia finally stepped out into the hallway, Daniel thanked her quietly, his voice rough with emotion. She looked at him with tired eyes filled with unspoken stories and whispered that Lily was a blessing in her life already. Daniel felt breathless at the sincerity in her words, and for the first time he wondered if the wrong bride had truly been sent to the wrong ranch, or if fate had carried her exactly where she was meant to be. The morning sun rose over the quiet ranch, casting soft gold light across the fields and the wooden fences. Evelyn stepped outside holding a small envelope she had found tucked beneath her saddle blanket. Her heart beat unevenly as she turned it over in her hands, the paper worn, the edges slightly torn, as if carried a long time before being left for her. She did not open it, not yet. Instead, she stood still, breathing in the peaceful air, while wondering who could have sent such a thing, and why they had left it for her in secret. Inside the house, Daniel prepared breakfast, moving with steady, practiced motions, though his thoughts drifted to Evelyn more often than he admitted. The mistaken arrival of the bride had changed the rhythm of the ranch, the way the rooms felt warmer, the way laughter returned, the way Lily smiled more freely. He did not know what the letter was or where it had come from, but he sensed something weighed heavily on Evelyn's shoulders. Evelyn walked to the porch, slowly running her fingers across the envelope, feeling both fear and curiosity. Lily spotted her from the yard and ran up with bright, hopeful eyes, asking if she would braid her hair. Evelyn smiled and agreed, placing the mysterious letter beside her on the porch railing. Lily sat cross-legged while Evelyn gently worked through her tangled curls, the child humming softly, the breeze carrying the sound like a quiet blessing. As Evelyn braided Lily's hair, Daniel stepped onto the porch. Noticing the envelope, he asked if something was wrong, but Evelyn shook her head, unsure of her own answer. Her past seemed to reach out from the shadows, demanding attention, a past she had hoped to outrun. She finished the braid, tying it neatly and whispering that Lily looked lovely, which earned a shy smile from the little girl. When Lily ran off to feed the chickens, Daniel approached Evelyn. He did not press her, instead offering his steady presence and a space where she could choose to speak if she wished. Evelyn felt the weight of the unopened letter grow heavier in her hand, and finally she sat down, opening it slowly. The handwriting inside was familiar but unwelcome, sharp memories rising like cold wind from forgotten places. The letter spoke of her intended groom, the man whose ranch she had been meant to reach, a man older, harsh, and known for cruelty. It said he was on his way searching for the bride who had gone missing, claiming she belonged to him. Evelyn's breath caught, her pulse quickened, and her vision blurred for a moment with fear. She had escaped a life of control only to learn it was closing in again. Daniel saw her trembling and gently took the letter, reading it carefully. His jaw tightened, a quiet fury in his eyes as he recognized the threat approaching. He looked at Evelyn not with pity but with fierce protectiveness, reminding her she was safe here, that she would not face this alone. Evelyn felt tears rise, not from fear alone but from the strength she saw in him, from the safety she had never known elsewhere. She folded the letter slowly, her hands still shaking, and Daniel placed his warm hand over hers, steadying her. The ranch felt suddenly quieter, heavier, as if bracing for a storm, yet Evelyn found courage rising within her, not because danger faded but because she no longer faced it alone. She stood beside Daniel, the two of them united by choice, by circumstance, and by something deeper forming between them. The day went on, but the shadow of the letter lingered. Evelyn and Daniel prepared themselves, each step guided by determination and the growing bond between them. The wrong ranch had become her refuge and perhaps her home, but danger was riding closer with every passing hour, and the future they were beginning to imagine now hung in the balance. The morning sun rose over the Walker Ranch, casting a soft golden glow across the fields and barns. As Evelyn stepped outside, the crisp air brushing against her face, she breathed slowly, steadying the emotions that had grown inside her since arriving by mistake 2 weeks earlier. Incorrect or not, the ranch had begun to feel like a home, and the little girl Lily had clung to her with such innocent affection that Evelyn found herself returning that love without hesitation. Caleb had ridden out before dawn, surveying the property for signs of trouble. The threat of the men from the neighboring counties searching for the runaway bride still lingered in his mind, and he took no chances. He carried the burden silently, unsure how to protect both Lily and Evelyn if the wrong men came riding through the hills. Inside the house, Evelyn prepared breakfast while Lily helped setting plates and humming softly. Their routine had developed naturally, a gentle rhythm shaped by care, chores, and quiet companionship. Evelyn glanced at Lily with a warmth she had not felt in years. The child moved with confidence and joy, trusting Evelyn in a way few ever had. When Caleb returned, his boots carried dust and tension. Evelyn saw it before he even spoke. He nodded at her, a subtle signal that he needed to speak privately. She followed him onto the porch, the boards creaking beneath their steps. He leaned against a post, eyes fixed on the horizon, while Evelyn waited, hands folded calmly. He finally spoke, his voice firm but low. "Trouble is stirring," he said. "They were asking questions in town, men looking for you, but not in the helpful way." Evelyn swallowed slowly, then exhaled steadily, acceptance settling into her bones. She had fled her own wedding after discovering the dark intentions of her intended groom, and now those men wanted her back, not out of love but control. Caleb faced her fully, the morning light illuminating the shadow in his eyes. "I will not let them take you," he said, the vow unspoken yet unmistakable. Evelyn felt her heart shift quietly, his protectiveness stirring something deep within her. Lily stepped onto the porch, small footsteps drawing both their attention. She held a wooden horse, one Caleb had carved, and she lifted it toward him with a smile. "Uncle Cal, can I show Evelyn the secret place?" The question broke the tension, if only a little. Caleb nodded, and Lily took Evelyn's hand, leading her past the barn toward the grove of cottonwoods. Beneath the trees, sunlight filtered through in warm speckles. Lily knelt among wildflowers and whispered, "This is where I talk to Mama." Evelyn knelt beside her, heart tightening at the tenderness in the child's voice. Lily looked up, eyes clear and full of trust. She said softly, "Mama told me someone would come, someone kind, someone who would stay." Evelyn felt tears rise as Lily placed a small flower in her hand. "God finally sent you to us," she whispered. And in that moment, surrounded by soft sunlight and the child's unwavering faith, Evelyn felt her purpose shift, her heart choosing this ranch, this child, and the man who had vowed to protect her. The morning light spilled over the fields of the ranch, casting long shadows across the wooden fences and the barn. Clara moved through the yard, her hands brushing over the flowers she had planted while the little girl played nearby. Luke worked steadily repairing the corral, his hands skilled and deliberate, each motion careful and precise, yet there was an ease in the air, a quiet companionship that had grown naturally over the past days. Clara paused, watching Luke from a distance, her heart swelling with a mixture of admiration, gratitude, and a gentle warmth she had never known before. The drifter who had come into their lives had become more than a protector. He had become a steady presence, a source of safety and comfort whose quiet strength had gradually earned the trust and affection of both her and the child. The little girl ran up giggling, her tiny hands brushing against Clara as she carried a basket of eggs from the chicken coop. Her laughter filled the air, light and melodic, weaving into the rustling of the wind through the tall grasses and the creak of the barn door. Luke looked up momentarily, catching her smile and offering a small nod, a silent acknowledgement of the shared joy that had begun to flourish among them. Clara joined Luke at the corral, carrying a few tools and supplies. They worked side by side, repairing the fence and securing the gate. Their movements synchronized the rhythm of labor, providing an unspoken connection. The small details of daily life became moments of closeness, gestures of care and mutual understanding, each glance and smile strengthening the bond that was slowly forming into something deeper than mere trust. As the sun climbed higher, the heat of the day settled over the ranch, and Clara and Luke paused to take a brief respite. The little girl settled onto the porch steps, playing with a stick in the dust. Content in their presence, they sat together silently for a moment, the quiet hum of life around them a soothing backdrop to their growing connection. Clara felt the weight of uncertainty lift, replaced by a cautious hope and the realization that together they could navigate whatever challenges lay ahead. Luke reached over, adjusting a loose strap on Clara's satchel, a small gesture yet filled with consideration and care. The moment lingered between them, unspoken yet understood, a silent affirmation that the partnership and affection that had developed was becoming meaningful and significant. The child looked up from her play, giggling and calling for them to join her, breaking the quiet yet adding a layer of warmth to the scene. They spent the remainder of the afternoon completing small tasks and attending to the ranch chores, yet the day felt different from previous days, lighter, filled with a sense of purpose and belonging. Each act of work shared became a thread weaving them closer together, forming the fabric of their emerging family unit. As evening approached, the sky turned soft shades of pink and lavender. Clara and Luke sat on the porch watching the horizon, the wind carrying the scent of earth flowers and the warmth of the day. Their hands brushed occasionally, their hearts aware of the quiet but undeniable connection forming. The trials and dangers they had faced gradually giving way to a growing sense of hope, love and unity. The ranch settled into calm as night approached, the child asleep in a nearby cradle. Clara and Luke remained together on the porch, the fading light reflecting in their eyes, a quiet understanding passing between them that what had begun in chaos and confusion was blossoming into a bond that would endure. The night fell quietly over the ranch, the stars emerging one by one in the vast sky above. Clara and Luke stood at the edge of the corral, the little girl asleep inside the cabin, the soft glow of the lantern casting warm light across their faces. The air was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of grass and earth, yet beneath the calm was the tension of unspoken questions and truths that could no longer be avoided. Clara's hands trembled slightly as she brushed a strand of hair from her face. She had known that this moment would come, the moment when the mistakes and misunderstandings of the past would need to be addressed and faced. She looked at Luke, his expression steady, calm yet reflective, and knew that he too carried the weight of past uncertainties, the fear of losing the bond they had built over the days and the courage required to speak honestly. Luke took a deep breath, his gaze falling to the ground before lifting to meet Clara's eyes. "I need to tell you," he said, his voice low, steady yet weighted with the gravity of the moment. Clara nodded silently, encouraging him to continue, her heart beating rapidly in anticipation and fear. The truth he carried had been hidden for too long, a secret that could alter everything between them, and yet honesty was the only path forward. He began to speak, recounting events from the past, his mistakes, moments of hesitation and fear that had shaped his decisions and actions. The words spilled slowly, carefully measured yet full of emotion. Clara listened intently, each sentence carrying weight, yet also the sincerity and vulnerability that had drawn her to him from the start. The night air seemed to still around them, the world narrowing to only the two of them and the fragile truth bridging the space between. Clara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, the revelations challenging yet also clarifying, bringing into focus the depth of Luke's heart and the sincerity of his care. She reached out, placing a hand lightly on his arm, a silent gesture of support, understanding and forgiveness. The night seemed to breathe with them, carrying away the tension and leaving room for clarity and connection. They spoke for hours, recounting moments of doubt, hope and reflection, sharing the burdens they had carried alone and together. The little girl's soft breathing from inside the cabin reminded them of the reason they were here, the family they were building and the future they hoped to create. With each confession and response, the walls built by fear, misunderstanding and hesitation crumbled, leaving space for trust, affection and love. As the first hint of dawn appeared on the horizon, Clara and Luke stood together, watching the sky change color, their hands entwined, their hearts aligned. The past had been faced, the truth acknowledged, and the connection between them strengthened by courage and honesty. They understood that facing the truth was not an end but a beginning, a chance to embrace the love, trust and unity that had grown quietly yet steadfastly between them. The ranch was calm, the world awakening around them. Clara and Luke turned toward the cabin, ready to continue their journey side by side, stronger, united and prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage, patience and unwavering devotion. The morning sun rose gently over the ranch, spilling golden light across the fields, the cabin, and the corral. Clara stepped outside carrying a small basket of fresh eggs, the little girl trailing behind her, giggling softly at the warmth of the day. Luke followed with a bundle of firewood, each step steady and calm, the bond between them undeniable and strong. The ranch felt alive with the quiet rhythm of life, chores, animals, and the soft breeze through the tall grasses, yet beneath the everyday movements lay a deeper sense of peace and belonging that had taken root over the past weeks. Clara glanced at Luke, her heart swelling with gratitude, admiration, and affection. He had become her protector, companion, and partner, someone whose presence brought comfort, strength, and quiet joy. The little girl ran ahead, picking wildflowers along the path, calling out to them, her laughter pure and melodic, carrying across the open fields. Clara and Luke shared a glance, a silent acknowledgement of the love and family they had begun to build together. Each small act, caring for the child, working the land, maintaining the cabin, became part of the fabric of their shared life, threads woven together, forming trust, understanding, and affection. They worked side by side throughout the morning, tending to the garden, collecting eggs, feeding the animals, repairing the fences, each task simple yet significant, each gesture a reflection of commitment and cooperation. Their hands brushed occasionally, their eyes meeting, briefly conveying words and spoken emotions felt deeply and understood fully. The quiet intimacy of shared labor strengthened their bond and affirmed the family they were becoming. As the sun climbed higher, the warmth enveloped them, the little girl chasing butterflies and laughing as Clara and Luke watched, smiling and occasionally joining in. The ranch felt full of life, full of hope and the promise of the future. The events of the past weeks, the mistakes, misunderstandings, and fears had been replaced by clarity, purpose, and connection, a love that had grown steadily, nurtured, and now embraced fully. They paused on the porch later, the basket of eggs set down, the fire crackling softly behind them, and watched the hills bathed in afternoon sunlight. The child leaned against Clara, looking between them, both her small hands intertwining with theirs, a silent testament to the bond of trust, care, and love that had been built over time. They spoke softly of dreams, plans, and hopes for the days ahead, allowing the quiet moments to affirm the life they were creating. The ranch settled into calm, the animals resting, the wind soft and warm, the sky vast and clear. Clara and Luke held hands, their hearts aligned, their spirits intertwined, the little girl between them completing the circle of trust, care, and affection. They had faced the trials of misunderstanding, danger, and uncertainty together and emerged united, stronger, and committed to a shared future. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the fields, Clara, Luke, and the little girl stood together on the porch, watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange. The day ended as it began, with hope, warmth, and togetherness. Their love had been tested, nurtured, and now fully recognized and embraced, a quiet, resilient force binding them as a family ready to face the coming days side by side with courage, patience, and unwavering devotion. The ranch rested in peaceful evening. Clara and Luke shared a look, a smile, a gentle squeeze of the hand, and the child nestled close, a family united in heart, spirit, and love, ready to grow and thrive together.